Hi, I'm Claire, a librarian at Acton Memorial Library, and in this video I'm going to share with you the 8th part of the book, The Children of Odin by Pedrick Collum. If you missed any of the previous 7 parts, they're all available on the Acton Memorial Library YouTube page. This book is in the public domain. As I've mentioned before, you can watch the video, but you can also just listen to the audio from the video. And I just want to mention up front, some of the words in this is Norse mythology, and some of the names, the proper names, are really hard to pronounce, but I'm doing my best with them. Anyway, part 8 is called Heimdall and Little Hnossa, How All Things Came to Be. Hnossa, the child of Freya and the lost Odur, was the youngest of all the dwellers in Asgard. And because it had been prophesied that the child would bring her father and her mother together, little Hnossa was often taken without the city of the gods to stand by Bifrost, the rainbow bridge, so that she might greet Odur if his steps turned towards Asgard. In all the palaces of the city of the gods, little Hnossa was made welcome. In Fensalir, the Hall of Mists, where Frigga, the wife of Odin All-Father, sat spinning with golden threads. In Bridalbrick, where Baldur, the well-beloved, lived with his fair wife, the young Nanna. In Bilskirnir, the winding house, where Thor and Sif lived. And in Odin's own palace, Valaskjalf, that was all roofed over in silver shields. The greatest of all the palaces was Gladsheim, and that was built by the golden-leaved wood Glasir. Here the banquets of the gods were held. Often little Hnossa looked within and saw Odin All-Father seated at the banquet table with a mantle of blue over him and a shining helmet shaped like an eagle upon his head. Odin would sit there, not eating at all, drinking the wine of the gods, and taking food off the table and giving it to Geri and Freki, the 2 wolves that crouched beside his seat. She loved to go outside the great gate and stay beside Heimdall, the warder of the the warder of the Rainbow Bridge. Here, when there was no one crossing that she might watch, she would sit beside Heimdall and listen to the wonders that he spoke of. And I would like to share an illustration with you. This is surely Hnossa and Heimdall by the Rainbow Bridge. Can you see that there? Heimdall held in his hands the horn that was called the Gwilar horn. He would sound it to let the dwellers in Asgard know that one was crossing the Rainbow Bridge. And Heimdall told little Hnossa how he had trained himself to hear the grasses grow, and how he could see all around him for 100 miles. He could see in the night as well as the day. He never slept. He had 9 mothers, he told Hnossa, and he fed on the strength of the earth and the cold sea. As she sat beside him day after day, Heimdall would tell little Hnossa how all things began. He had lived from the beginning of time, and he knew all things. Before Asgard was built, he said, and before Odin lived, earth and sea and sky were all mixed together. What was then was the chasm of chasms. In the north, there was Niflheim, the place of deadly cold, and in the south, there was Muspelheim, the land of fire. In Niflheim, there was a cauldron called Vigelmur that poured out 12 rivers that flowed into the chasm of chasms. Ginnungagap, the chasm of chasms, filled up with ice, for the waters of the rivers froze as they poured into it. From Muspelheim, clouds of fire turned the ice into thick mists. The mists fell down again in drops of dew, and from these drops were formed Ymir, the ancient giant. Ymir, the ancient giant, traveled along by the 12 rivers until he came to where another living form was standing in the mists, and this was a giant cow. Aloud-Heimdall was the name of that cow. Ymir milked the cow, and on her milk he lived. Other beings were formed out of the dew that fell to the ground, and these were the daughters of the frost, and Ymir the ancient giant, married one, and their children were the giants. One day Ymir saw Audhumla breathe upon a cliff of ice and lick with her tongue the place she had breathed on. As her tongue went over and over the place, he saw a figure was being formed. It was not like a giant's form. It was more shapely and more beautiful. A head appeared in the cliff, and golden hair fell over the ice. As Ymir looked upon the being that was being formed, he hated him for his beauty. Audhumla, the giant cow, went on licking the place where she had breathed. At last, a man completely formed stepped from the cliff. Ymir, the ancient giant, hated him so much that he would have slain him right then and there. But he knew that if he did this, Audhumla would feed him no more with her milk. Bur was the name of the man who was formed on the ice cliff. Bur, the first of the heroes. He too lived on the milk of Audhumla. He married a daughter of the ancient giant, and he had a son. But Ymir and Ymir's sons hated Bur, and the time came at last when they were able to kill him. And now there was a war between Ymir and Ymir's sons and the son and sons' sons of Bur. Odin was the son of Bur's son. Odin brought all the brothers together, and they were able to destroy Ymir and all of his brood, all except for one. So huge was Ymir that when he was slain, his blood poured out in such a mighty flood that his sons were all drowned in it, except for Bergelmir, who was in a boat with his wife when the flood came, and who floated away on the flood to the place that we now call Jotunheim, the realm of the giants. Now, Odin and his sons took the body of Ymir, the vastest body that ever was, and they flung it into the chasm of chasms, filling up all the hollow places with it. They dug the bones out of the body and they piled them up on the mountains. They took the teeth out and they made them into rocks. They took the hair of Ymir and they made it into forests of trees. They took his eyebrows and formed them into the place where men now dwell, Midgard. And out of Ymir's hollow skull they made the sky. And Odin and his sons and brothers did more than this. They took the sparks and clouds of flame that blew from Muspelheim, and they made them into the sun and the moon and all the stars that are in the sky. Odin found a dusky giantess named Night, whose son was called Day, and he gave both of them horses to drive across the sky. Night drove a horse that he named Hrimfax, Frosty Mane, and Day drove a horse that is named Skinfaxe, Shining Mane. From Hrimfaxe's bit fall the drops that make the dew upon the earth. Then Odin and his sons made the race of men and women and gave them Midgard to live in. Ugly gnomes had grown up and spread themselves over the earth. These Odin made to go live in the hollow places beneath the earth. The elves he let stay on the earth, but he gave them the task of tending to the streams and grasses and flowers. And then, with the Vanir, he made peace after a war had been waged, taking Njord from them for a hostage. Bergelmir, the giant who had escaped drowning in Ymir's blood, had sons and daughters in Jotunheim. They hated Odin and his sons and strove against them. When Odin lighted up the world with the sun and the moon, they were very wroth, and they found two of the fiercest and mightiest wolves of Jotunheim and set them to follow them. And still the sun and the moon, Sal and Mani, are followed by those wolves from Jotunheim. Such wonders did Heimdall with the golden teeth tell Hnossa, the youngest of the dwellers in Asgard. Often the child stayed with him by the rainbow bridge and saw the gods pass to and from Midgard. Thor with his crown of stars, with the great hammer Mjolnir in his hands, with the gloves of iron that he used when he grasped Mjolnir. Thor in his chariot drawn by 2 goats and wearing the belt that doubled his strength. Frigga with her dress of falcon feathers, flying swiftly as a bird. Odin Allfather himself, riding upon Sleipnir, the 8-legged steed, clad all in golden armor, and with his golden helmet, shaped like an eagle, up upon his head, and with his spear, Gungnir, in his hand. Heimdall kept his horn in the branch of a great tree. The tree was called Yggdrasil, he told little Hnossa, and it was a wonder to the gods and the men. No one knows of a time when Yggdrasil was not growing, and all are afraid to speak of a time when it will be destroyed. Yggdrasil has 3 roots. One goes deep under Midgard, another goes deep under Jotunheim, and the third grows above Asgard. Over Odin's hall, a branch of Yggdrasil grows, and it is called the Peace Bough. You see Yggdrasil, little Hnossa, but you do not know all the wonders of it. Far up in its branches, 4 stags graze. They shake from their horns the water that falls as rain upon the earth. On the topmost branch of Yggdrasil, the branch that is so high that the gods themselves can hardly see it, there's an eagle that knows all things. And upon the beak of this eagle, a hawk is perched, a hawk that sees what the eyes of the eagle may not see. The root of Yggdrasil that is in Midgard goes deep down to the place of the dead. And here there is an evil dragon named Nidhogg that gnaws constantly at the root, striving to destroy Yggdrasil, the tree of trees. And Ratatösk, the Squirrel of Mischief, behold him now, runs up and down Yggdrasil, making trouble between the eagle above and the dragon below. He goes to tell the dragon how the eagle is bent upon tearing him to pieces, and then he goes back and he tells the eagle how the dragon plans to devour him. The stories that he brings to Nidhogg make that evil dragon more fierce to destroy Yggdrasil, the tree of trees, so that he may come upon the eagle and devour him. There are 2 wells by the roots of Yggdrasil, and one is above and one is below. One is beside the root that grows in Jotunheim. This is a well of knowledge, and it is guarded by old Mimir the wise. Whoever drinks out of this well knows all of the things that will come to be. The other well is by the root that grows above Asgard. No one may drink out of this well. The 3 sisters that are the holy Norns guard it, and they take the white water from it to water Yggdrasil, so that the tree of life may keep green and strong. And this well, little Hnossa, is called Urda's well. And little Hnossa heard that by Urda's well there were 2 beautiful white swans, and they made a music that the dwellers in Asgard often heard. But Hnossa was too young to hear the music that was made by the swans of Urda's well. And that is the end of part 8. Wow, I really like that part about the Squirrel of Mischief running up and down the tree of trees. That's quite something. All right. Thank you for joining me.